I can shoot an event for 24 hours straight and I'll still be working and be on my feet. For photography, that when you see me work, I'm a beast, is event photography. So some people I say, oh, photography found me, which is true. Other times I say, you know what, it's hunger that drove me into photography, which sometimes could be true.
There's a lot of conversation about this, right? There's the idea of being divergent, where I can be anything, right? I'm allowed to be anything. Can I monetize everything I can be? Becomes the challenge. Can I be known to be the guy who can do everything?
Humans are not created to multitask. We can argue it. I can shut down the whole business and I'll leave this whole territory and give me 1 year, 365 days max. I'll be almost here that I left you guys. I've gone through the process. I understand it. I am not scared of it. Do I get scared of failing now? No. The only thing that works is be known for something and then go to other things.
Kola Oshalusi, founder of Insignia Media and convener of Business of Photography Conference, isn't just a photographer. He's a visual strategist shaping Africa's largest creative content ecosystem. From capturing stories across continents to mentoring the next generation of storytellers, Kola has made distribution and monetization inseparable from creativity.
Photography was that business for me that I found biggest of challenge and biggest vacuum.
In this episode of Beyond Transactions, he shares how photography found him, how he turned art into infrastructure, and why building structures that outlive us is key. Get ready to see the heartbeat behind the business lens and how an artist redefines the retail chain, one frame and one journey at a time.
One thing we'll be talking about a lot in Beyond Transaction is the focus on people who are shaping the industry, right? And we've seen several industries scale. We've seen people who have made it scale. We've seen people scale in an industry that seem like it's not supposed to scale. So when it comes to your industry, photography, you are one of the few people who have really made it into an industry. You can't Google the top 10 photographers, in our region that are truly shaping the industry, and your name doesn't come out. And it makes the curious thing. It makes the curious thing, Yeah. So I want to go straight into the way you see the industry. How did you even get to see photography as an industry that you wanted to play in?
I think a lot of it comes from the fact that I've always wanted to build businesses. Okay. And some way, somehow, along the line, I realized that all businesses are the same. The only difference is the product. So I had to see photography as a product and then build a business around it. And I think that's what worked for me. So it was beyond the art for me. The art is key, the art is important. But because I wanted to build business, I didn't just want to build business, I wanted to build a business that can outlive me. And I realized that, like any other business, you just put structures in place and, let the product, become what you sell. But, it's not just about the product, it's about how you sell the product. So, literally that's what I had in mind. That's what kind of evolved to what it is.
So, but when growing up,
okay,
all right, because I would like you to take us back. When growing up, I'm sure it would have been worse in your time. Because in my time, all right, if you told your parents you wanted to be a photographer, and how we perceive photographers were, those small events, they come and then they take pictures and it's like, 100 naira then, it was always, so that's how you perceive photography.
Absolutely.
Right? I don't think it was easy to tell your parents you wanted to be a photographer.
I didn't even tell them, so don't worry.
When did it really hit you that I'm going to do this? Or did you just go, I'm going to do a business, and then you went, okay, which business, and you picked, which came first?
When I talk about this, maybe I talk about the version that just pops into my head, because to some people I say, oh, photography found me, which is true. Other times I say, you know what, it's hunger that drove me into photography, which sometimes could be true. But I think the core for me is, I didn't have a background in in arts. Didn't have a background in photography. So photography was never in my radar growing up, as a child. And it's funny, I wasn't even one of those kids that love taking pictures. So it wasn't even about, oh, maybe I developed an interest when I was young. It was never that for me. It was more, or as you get to learn to understand, and it gets clearer, you understand it's divine. I believe so much in divine ordering, and I think for me, photography, it's kind of divine. It's a path that has been laid for me way before I understood it, and it's an industry I realized I definitely somehow was made to make impact in. So I studied science lab tech. I worked in medical science for about 6-7 years. My major was on the methodology. I always looked through the microscope and all of that. So it was more about, identifying cells, identifying whatever, you find within the cell. So that really got me really knowledgeable about lenses and how it works. And then when I went back to school to study, I studied computer science, and I majored more in graphics, so screen resolution and that was about the time, computing was becoming a big deal. So, so what I do now is a mix of both, some way, somehow, because photography now is technology based, beyond the art form, beyond the techniques, of the darkroom and all of that. Photography is now technology based. So it's a mix of understanding the lens and understanding the colors and the pixels and every other thing. So some way, somehow, maybe all I've done within my career is preparing me for a place like this. Absolutely. So that's number one. But number two is, I think photography sort of found me, because I already have the knowledge, building up as well. But beyond that is, like I said, I've always wanted to build a business. I've always wanted to build a business. So I registered Insignia as something else. So it was Insignia Entertainment, because I was doing as a hustler. I was doing quite a lot of things: model management, event planning, doing graphics, non-linear editing, which is the kind of editing you do now, because editing then was split into linear and non-linear. Linear was more of the live editing, what has transformed into, live visual mixing now, to, non-linear, where you have to, download and then digitize the files from the tape, to what you have that you can now take to your computer and then start editing. Because, we're moving out of the era of, cutting tapes and all of that to, digitizing it and then moving it into the computer. So I had all of those things, that, I was doing here, there, and all of that. But, some way, somehow, I found photography. But the bottom line is, I had wanted to build a business. I wasn't sure of the product. I remember, I had this complimentary card I'd done then that had like, it's Kola Oshalusi, Insignia Entertainment Service. And then the back of the card had like 14 services that I have. And I remember speaking to, I had given the card to someone who had gone to shoot his wedding.
Yeah.
And, funny enough, I was doing photography at that wedding. And I looked through the card and I said, see, listen. So he was introducing me to, the groom was introducing me to the bride proper. And he said, no, this is Kola, great guy, amazing guy, and he does a lot of things, apart from photography. So then when we're leaving, he called and said, listen, bro, and I'll never forget, his name is Coyote. He said, you need to be known for something. And then you build into many things. But people need to think of one service. And when they think of that service, the first thing that pops into their mind should be your name. That's the only way you can have it. With that, you've got so much talent, but you cannot sell all of those talents. You have to sell one, and then people trust you with that one talent. And then you can expand that, as a leverage and as a credit, to build on every other business. And I'll never forget that, So for me, along the line, while sorting through, photography was that, business for me that I found pleasure, that I found fulfillment, that I found the biggest of challenge. And that's funny. I found the biggest of challenge and I found the biggest vacuum. You understand? And I won't take it for granted. Vacuum was key for me. So I found that biggest vacuum that I needed to fill. I understood it would actually be a bit difficult filling it, but it was a vacuum I felt I could fill within that ecosystem, which would take me through a very tricky journey. But it was something I was actually excited about. So yeah, I picked it up.
That's very interesting. That's like hearing your journey. The funny thing is, I think it's quite familiar, right? About 15-ish years ago, I had this card. I saw the graphic picture of the card recently from Google Drive. I think I had like 10 savings.
It's always normal when you're super talented to think you can do everything, and then there's the energy of the youth that makes you feel more. I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me.
Now, so it now makes me curious. Like this will most likely be an opinion thing here, though. But I'm now curious. What for you would you say? Anyone who is looking at the industry right now, knowing what you know, do you think it was a good decision to pick one thing to be known for? Because there's a lot of conversation about this, right? There's the idea of being divergent, where I can be anything, right? I'm allowed to be anything. Can I monetize everything I can be? Becomes the challenge. Can I be known to be the guy who can do everything? Would that work for me? Or does it make sense that I do exactly what you did, which is find the parts and say, okay, yes, I can do everything, but this is the one where every time that thing is talked about, I am a forerunner.
I'll take it into perspective. So historically, the only thing that works is be known for something and then grow to other things. That's number one. Number two is humans are not created to multitask. We can argue it. I mean, the only species that might try a little to multitask because they're created to multitask internally and externally. But men are created to just either be internal people or external people. Are the women, that can carry pregnancy and at the same time, they can be a wife, a mom, and what other thing? They can and businesswoman. They can be all of that, everything. But even at that, as much as they are the only, subspecies of the human race that can actually do that, they still can't do it perfectly. But the men, you're not created to multitask. Because the reality is this: for everything you think you're multitasking in, one has to suffer. In reality, one must suffer because you must be biased. The same way you can love everybody, but you will love some people much more than the others. Even if you have kids, you love all of them. You love one more, not because you love them more, but because there's something about them, that you channel that part of love towards. It doesn't mean you hate the other ones. You love the other one too for something that is different. So, I mean, I have that with my kids. It's one of my kids I love because his energy is not from here. Every time I see him, I remember me growing up because it's everything I dread, that a parent should face. That is making me face because I know that was what I did to my parents as well.
I see.
Great guy, you understand what I'm saying? So, but then I have another of my kid that is the most amazing person. If I'm leaving home, I'm like, dude, you're in charge, because I know if you put him in charge, the house is in order. He's very calm. You mess up with him, he messes you up. You can't. So I love them all, but there's something so that's all you can be. So it's not even something to argue. You're not born or created to multitask. You're created to be you, one. So focus on one and run that over another. So I'll explain it. Give me one person or one business that you think, run multiple business and multitask. Give me one person.
A person? Michael Jackson was a great dancer and a singer. I kind of think he was multi-talented and he was able to be, like, when you think the greatest dancers of all time, Michael will come up. You think the greatest singers of all time, Michael will come up.
So I don't think Michael was the greatest dancer. Don't forget that, he had people who were training him, who
coached him.
choreographed with
Yeah.
him. They are the better dancers. He's the guy that the world knows because he comes out to display what those people have taught
Trust
him.
him. True. Okay.
That's it. Now, Michael was a fantastic musician, and he was a great performer. So he merged all of those things to become a performer. Doesn't mean he was the best dancer. You understand what I'm saying? People see him more as Michael that sings more than Michael that dances. Because Michael that dances is trained to dance by somebody who dances better than Michael. So at the end of the day, he's not the greatest. It's just because, he's the one that comes out to display that. When you look at it, something must suffer. So for Michael to be that dancer, he's not singing at that point in time. He has to go learn dancing. And then when it comes to perform, is when you see those things come together. It doesn't make, so you cannot do two things at the same time.
So
One
which means
thing has
Michael
to work.
was a performer. That's what you're saying.
Michael was a performer. Beyond him being being a musician or whatever you want to call him, Michael was a performer because he understood how to hold the stage spellbound. There were people who were singing way better than Michael. But then Michael comes on stage and he creates a presence. So he was a performer, not a musician. Because there are people even writing his songs for him.
Well, some of his songs.
Yes.
Very true. Very true.
So he wasn't the best musician. He wasn't the best dancer. But he was one of the most talented performers.
I see.
You understand? And he brought those things together.
And you think the same thing applies in your industry, in photography?
Absolutely. So my forte as a photographer is event photography. But I shoot some of the best portraits. I still won't take it off. Trust me. If there's one part of photography that when you see me work, I'm a beast, it's event photography. I can shoot an event for 24 hours straight and I'll still be working and be on my feet. Now, I can start shooting portraits and it gets to a point I'm like, I'm not inspired anymore, I'm done. But I'm always there for that thing that is going to happen within an event that I have to find that people don't see, that makes it unique. That's who I am. It doesn't mean I'm not a great, I'm one of the best portrait photographers in Nigeria. I'm not even trying to exaggerate. When I shoot portraits, I barely do post-production work on them. I shoot clean, and whatever you see on my camera is the picture. So if I send to my retouchers, it's just to clean up one or two things or take out one or two things. You understand? So I'll say I am one of the best portrait photographers in Nigeria, but the reality is my forte is events. Because I love shooting events. I shoot weddings. I mean, even though weddings is event, but over time it's
separated
kind of
days.
separated. So I might not do that. But trust me, I find stories in concerts. I find stories in the weirdest of places. I find stories in corporate events that people are like, wow, this is not what we're expecting. You understand? So it doesn't mean I'm not a great portrait photographer. It doesn't mean I'm not a fantastic commercial photographer. I shoot some of the biggest campaigns in Nigeria. You understand what I'm saying? So, but the reality is, while I'm shooting those things, one thing will suffer. But how did I start shooting fashion entertainment? I shoot the best runway in first 5 in Africa for runway photography. I'm first 5 in Africa. So the point is, I shoot all of those things. But the key thing is, I was known for events. So because people trust me as a dependable event photographer, that I would always deliver. When I tell them I can shoot portraits, they trust me because they're coming from the point of view that he shot events that we've seen that is fantastic, then he should be able to do this. So even when I fail, I falter in those things, they're like, maybe it's just because it's this, but he shoots great events. So that sort of gives you that leverage, to be able to, it's a credit that, you can't exhaust, when people trust you with that, with that particular field, and that's, I think that's the only way and that's the best way to go. Otherwise, you just keep running round and round and round and people will see you as the guy that is there, but the guy that is not there.
I see.
And that's it.
This is actually a very interesting thing for me because this word is common. You hear the term multi-potentialite, right? And I think your industry, the creative industry, right, which photography is a part of, has that more than anywhere else, where like a lot of people there are multi-potentialites, or we all say we're multi-potentialites. So we have the potential to be multiple things, right? But in order to really thrive as an industry, what you're now saying is you have to have a prime. You have to be known. So what are the structures that you put in place? Because sometimes it's hard, right? Sometimes it's hard. How do I say, okay, I'm going to pick this and master it, especially for now we know that there's a photographic industry, right? 5 years, 10 years ago, I don't think.
Oh yeah, it wasn't.
there
It
was an
wasn't. It
industry.
wasn't this.
How did you start putting structures in place where it matched up to form an industry around you? Because if I'm trying to build, especially with the creative sector, it's so volatile that you don't know what's gonna happen next. How do you now build a system?
Yes. So I'll say the key thing. So it's literally what I said initially. So because I think of it as a business and the product is anything different. So just build a business. So think that you're building a business. You're going to sell a product. Identify your product. My product is photography. I direct. I've directed commercials before. I've directed documentaries. You know, I produce quite a few. Doesn't mean I can't do all of this. I'm multi-talented. You know, I can't take that away. And that's the same with most people in the creative, ecosystem. You know, things you see continue to influence you, and then you express yourself in various forms. You know, at every point in time. But the key thing is when you bring all of those things together, you wanna be sure what you want to do in the long term. Like I said, I saw a vacuum in the industry. I came in through red carpet photography, which was the least paying within the ecosystem. Then, in fact, they were not really paying because the bulk of the red carpet photographers were attached to media publication, companies. And I was freelancing for some. I wasn't attached directly. But then because I sort of created a niche for myself and distinct myself in the quality of work, people started noticing. That's number one. Number two is because I said to myself, I wasn't going to live on per diems. Per diems are the envelopes they give. I said I wasn't going to live on it. So people sort of found a different personality in the fact that they offer me per diems. I say, no, you pay me for the service. So I negotiate the service for you before I engage in it. And then you pay me based on that. So even when they're sharing per diems as thank you, I don't take it. So people suddenly started seeing, okay, this guy seems to want to be on his own plane, on his own level. And that sort of, helped. And because I wanted to be there, and I keep going back to this sometimes. So a lot of times we think we need to see the end from the beginning. You can't. The only person that can see the end from the beginning is the Almighty God. And that's why we call him the Alpha and the Omega, because he knows the end from the beginning. He has his plan and his ways and all of that. But your man, even though we say men are God, but bro, you only see what's happening now. You don't even know what's going to happen in the next few minutes. And even if you get the the insight into things like that, the Bible said it will show you that which only you need to know. And you see a form or a part that it wants you to know at any point in time. But outside that, you can't, no matter how much you think you're supernatural, except there's something else that is given to you that, exceed. But if you're normal human, you only see now. You only know now. So it's not about trying to see, this is where the business is going to go from the beginning. But it's to have an understanding that this is where I would love the business to go. Now, that sort of helps you to say, okay, if I'm planning based on the direction I want the business to go. And then you start building based on that. Not that you have a guarantee of where it will go, but you have an aspiration of where you want it to go. And that begins to direct you. And it's so simple. I have somebody that would always say something, someone I respect so much. I'll say, if a man is destined for something great, the moment he puts his mind to it and he puts his feet to it to move in the direction of greatness, the whole universe will conform to want to actually, help him to become great. But if a man wants to be destroyed and he moves in the path of destruction, the whole universe, supports him to, end up in absolutely. So for me first is I identified I wanted to be a business. So that literally sort of helped me to start planning, from that. So everything I read, like I'll say to people, as much as I claim to be creative and a photographer, my relationships are both vertical and horizontal and even diagonal. So I find friends in different planes because I want to learn beyond my plane. So not all my friends are creatives. So I have business friends, I have legal friends, I have financial friends, I have strategic friends. So that way I'm able to bring all of that because they all run businesses. So I want to bring the knowledge of Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. C into my business. So I bring all of that together and build business, but not forgetting that my product is photography. So the question now is this: how do I use all of these ideas to sell the product photography? So remembering what the product is and then building relationship multidimensional to build the business, sort of help. One of the first thing, as much as my background is not in law, one of the first early things I, incorporated into our business is to have a lawyer. So we had a lawyer from like the very early stage of our business, and we're just partnering with the lawyer. And then we started paying. I remember we were paying maybe like 5,000 every month as retainer, and I'm sure the lawyer would laugh, but we're consistent with the 5K we pay, and then we started paying 10,000 naira over time, and then we moved it to 15,000 naira because for us is okay, you've been with us. I mean, when we had cases, they would appear there for us or they would pursue it. We might pay them for that service, but we had them on retainer, which means, at every point in time we need them. They're there to service us and then give advisories, So that sort of helped. So for me, that sort of started bringing structure to it. So for every business I thought about or any idea, I shared with them. They're like, okay, from a legal point of view, this is what you need to do. So that way we were able to structure it first legally. And then we now start moving into contract with people we're working with, and then contract with the clients we're servicing. And, we started building that. So it wasn't that we understood, how to build a whole business, but we're like, okay, we learned this today, we apply it to our business, we learned that. So, and another thing is we created a mission and a vision statement, a futuristic one, and it says our vision is to build Africa's largest photography company. In fact, we then moved it to say building Africa's largest content creating and content management company. And then our mission is to use the most advanced technology available to achieve, delivery in shortest time possible. So because our mission statement says we want to deliver using the latest technology in shortest time possible, means that we're always evolving. You understand? Yes. So for every time there's a new technology, we get that new technology and we infuse it. For every time we hear something new, we infuse that into it. And so when technology comes, instead of us to be scared about technology, we're asking, okay, how do we integrate that and infuse that into, because we promised ourselves that we'll use the latest technology to deliver in shortest time possible. So first is we need to deliver. Second is we need to find what will make us deliver fast. Third is we need to adapt technology. So for every time we were building, for every time the ecosystem was changing, we were, moving with that, because that's what we're about. That's the core of, our business and our vision. So it sort of made it easy for us.
So now I'm hearing this, right? And I feel like you said something, your background actually brought you here. So it's now sounding truly predestined, right? Because you did computer science, right? And now you have a vision to infuse technology. So somehow you've always been in technology. And your business is in the art. So there is the business, there's the art, there's the technology, right? And it feels like it worked for you. So this is me probably being the devil's advocate. It worked for you because you had the perfect triangle. Someone who always wanted to do business, has a background in science, doing arts, and it works with your vision. Does everyone in photography have to do this triangle to thrive, to get to where, those of you in your industry that have set a pace, do people need to do this triangle to succeed? Because if I don't have a background in science, I know nothing about the sciences, I don't have your background. Will I think like this? Will I know this? Or can I succeed without this?
Okay, so it's funny. The beautiful thing that has happened to photography in the last few years is you have people who have gone to university to study, polytechnic to study something, and then they bring it into photography. So I'll pick out two people. One of the things that's helped Kelechi is his background is law. Beyond being a painter artist, he's a lawyer. So a lot of times he's able to protect his work because it talks from the point of view of a lawyer. Real Magic, great guy, background is accounting, he's in finance.
Oh, I see.
So for every time we've talked, you come in and say, oh, you need to mentor me. I need to. I said, okay. And then when I asked what he studied, he told me what he studied. And for every part of his conversation, all he says is, I want to build business. I want to make sure I'm able to make money and build business. Now, you understand because it's coming from a financial point of view. You understand? So he's always looking at the numbers at every point in time.
I know this for a fact.
Yeah, okay, good. So am I making profits? Am I doing this? So it's seen from that point of view. So it doesn't have to be computing. And if you check each and every person that has built their business, so Emmanuel's background is in computing as well, Emmanuel Oyeleke. And one of the things you see is very tech savvy. You understand me? So beyond him now doing archery and all that, he's tech savvy as well. So he's a gear person. So he's one of those people that would buy more gears, and because that's who he is. So when you go around like that, the thing that needs to separate, see, what I say to people is education like we know it. I mean, they've taught us that education is when you go through the four walls of an institution, which is not true. Education is everything you learn. While growing up, from the home, the streets, whatever you learn, that's education. But everything you learn, education is supposed to mold you into what you become. You might come from a violent home and you educate yourself to be a peaceful person. You become peaceful. You might come from a very peaceful home and you unfortunately educate yourself to be a violent person. You become violent. So education becomes that thing which you soak up, that thing which you absorb, that thing that forms you and redefines you. You understand? So it doesn't necessarily have to be science. It could be anything. But you see, when you bring that into your business, it changes
the way the business works.
The way the business works. I'll take TY, for example. I'm not sure what she studied in school. But you can see that the bulk of our work has a connection to the kind of music she makes. So she does worship, she's this, she's that. So if you look through her images and the way she uses her color, that's it. The mix of color and all of that, it's a bit of that. It's almost like it's a wave, it moves like that. So it's what literally influences you as an artist, the way you go, the way you define, the way you create that. That's it. So it doesn't have to be science. It's you just applying knowledge to whatever you do. You understand? Your background is tech. You also love art. And that's why when you create your business, you create experiences. You create experiences because you're not thinking functionality. You're thinking functionality, user experience, and retainership. So you're saying, if I give them how it works, I also want to give them how it feels. You understand? So you're merging, and that definitely will put you ahead of the guy that all he knows is to write codes. And so it's you applying who and what you've absorbed as knowledge into what you're doing to become, what you should be. So I think that's the most important thing.
That, because for me, I was gonna come back to say, okay, there is an intersection, right? Every time I've always told myself that there is no thriving art without science. Absolutely. Right? And today's world even makes it more complex, where it's almost like there is no choice. Nothing would thrive in you. Like, you can't thrive without understanding technology, right? With a lot of technology seeping into the photography industry, right? I know this would be a lot easy for you, but how are you blending it in a way where you're keeping it relevant? Let's talk AI for a bit, right? When artificial intelligence was becoming more of a conversation in the public market, people were saying photographers, video makers, filmmakers, creative in that light, they were saying they were the first that were going to suffer the impact. These days, we're slightly beginning to say that maybe that's not true, right? Was it an industry thing you did? Like, did you people meet together and say, oh, look, as an industry, we have to jump on it? What did you do as a person when this happened?
So for every time I read any article, any news, I think, what does this thing look like in 5 years? What does it look like in 10 years? I play the devil advocate. I look at the threats. I look at the opportunities. That's how I read every single news. So I remember in 2020? Yes, it was 2020. The COVID came in.
Yeah, peak of COVID.
Yes, we had the theme for the BOP conference for that year was I think tech meets art or something. And what I started seeing then, pre all of this, NFT was almost seeping in. There were a few things that were seeping in. And what I thought is, listen, the only way around this is to create a convergence between the tech space and the art space. The tech world was already snatching developers from Nigeria.
Yes.
They were grabbing people everywhere. And I'm like, listen, these guys are earning $4,000, $5,000, $7,000. And to them, that's a lot of money. But for me to pay, from a business point of view, you're being hired by a capitalist. For a capitalist to pay you $4,000, you're making 40,000.
Yes.
If not 400,000.
Yeah, probably 400,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the first thing that came to mind is there's something people are not seeing that the capitalist is seeing, which is why it's grabbing people from this space. It didn't take me long to understand. I hire a guy in a foreign land who is so good. I send him money that when it converts becomes big money. I don't have the tax burden of him in my system. I can pay him whatever because he can live in a remote place cheaply, which means that he's fine, I'm fine. He does my job for me as long as I give him deadline.
Yeah.
Why should I worry? And then I put it back. I said, if that guy is making 100x of what he's paying this, what if this guy that is going there to make 100x for somebody can actually sit down here and make 100x for himself? Which means this guy can some way, somehow become a powerhouse that can hire more people. So for me, I think one of the things that helped me is when I think through my problem solving thinking doesn't think self. And I think that's what worked for me. Even the name of the company itself. So my problem solving thought is always about more, not me. So we were at that conference and it was funny, COVID struck. And we continued the conversation online. And I had spoken to tech about to bring people in tech. I had spoken to a couple of people to, and it was going to be flooded with people in the tech space. And what I wanted to do was create a meeting point for both industry and start having photographers tell the tech people their problem and the tech people develop solutions to those problems. And then COVID happened and then we couldn't do it. And then the year after we pushed something around that, and a lot of people didn't see it, but we saw it. So we started building solutions and ways around it. And then we started seeing post-COVID what was happening to the culture scene, that people were interested in the African culture because there were stories that people didn't understand. And we saw it that, listen, if we take tech, culture, and art and merge it together, we have a product to sell. So we brought up the conversation and said, listen, why don't we talk culture? Why don't we talk tech? Why don't we see how tech can build culture and then we turn it into a product, and then we design and build around that. And coincidentally, by 2021, 2022, Burna won Grammy with the videos he did locally. We had the Beyonce coming to Africa to want to do this. Then the Lion King was redefined. Then coming to America. Then this, then that. Then a lot of things started happening. I'm like, listen, you people don't get it. I am lucky to just read through, the lines and start looking at, the challenges of the future. So when AI was coming in, I didn't see it as a threat. I also saw it as a threat. But while people were seeing AI as a threat to the photography industry, I was seeing AI as what it is. Not necessarily because I understood what artificial intelligence meant. But was just reading like a novice that if something could be called intelligence and it's artificial, it means, and it's learning, because it's learning, it's learning knowledge.
Yeah.
If it could learn, it's artificial. It will come for everybody. It's just a matter of
It's
time.
time.
You understand?
Yeah.
So, and coincidentally, I was following how to understand products like the Uber.
Yeah.
And how Uber started understanding the Lagos traffic and every other thing.
Yeah.
And that to me was like, listen, this is learning. This is machine learning. Then the problem is not going to be about the photography industry. The problem is going to be an industry-wide problem.
Yes.
How do we deal with it? So for me, it's just started thinking through it and say, listen, what do we create? How do we pivot? Not necessarily pivot. How do we adapt? And for me, adaptation became like a straightforward thing.
Backbone.
And I was sharing my, my opinion and all that with, people in the industry. And this is, we're bringing it to the conversation on a bigger scale so that people could hear, people could read between the lines. A lot of people started adopting it, people started, keying into it. But quite a lot of people were not doing it. And, we're here now, we're not even, this is the early stage of whatever you think AI can do.
Yes.
So it hasn't even evolved yet. It's still learning. Yeah. You understand? It's learned as little as possible about African space. I think when the threat will come is when it's learned enough about the African culture, and then maybe I'll see it as a threat. But right now, it's how to adapt. And before it becomes a threat, definitely we will adapt.
I see.
That's why we're humans.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. So we've talked about the technology threat, right? Now it's the distribution of the arts that I'm curious about. Yeah. Again, Beyond Transaction looks at the intersection of all the dynamics of retail, all right? And so we know for certain with this conversation that there's the arts of photography, right? You have an event called BOP, the business of photography. All right, so there's the business of photography. Now, the business requires manufacturing, distribution, production, it requires sales, requires marketing, requires customer experience, and monetization, right? This entire chain that exists, I feel like one of the biggest struggle is distribution. You said something to me off camera some days ago, last time we saw, you said that you can have the best skill, but if no one knows it.
Yeah, no one knows it.
No one knows it. It means nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So, and then you were telling me you have to be in the right place. People have to see you, have to be positioned. That's the distribution, right? How have you managed distribution to position yourself? Because here you are, I'm super honored to be talking to you as a photographer. And then there's another photographer that I'm going to say, that will say, bros, and I'll be like, but like, it's not his art. That is the problem, right? It's his distribution. What has worked for you distribution-wise?
So, the word distribution is actually very big and very diverse when you look at it. And it depends on the context to which you're, talking distribution. Earlier on, collaboration became my access to distribution. Collaborating with magazines, collaborating with media companies, collaborating with those who needed my services, and I could offer them the services, even on a retainer, while they give me the publicity I needed. And then came social media. And then distribution became a bit easier one way or the other. But then it also has downside because social media suddenly became a noisy space, and not so true. And then AI now came. AI now became a hard to fact check space / noisy place and all that. And it will continue to evolve. It will continue to evolve, depending on how you say it. It will continue to evolve. But what has worked and what I keep doing is, like I said, when I think, and this is why I think people and I don't think self. For you to add value, people must see value. For people to see value, because it is human nature, a lot of people must gravitate towards it. If you're in the arts, in a space that I think your business is unique, and you keep it extremely unique, within that context, your clientele will be limited to those people who just wants to buy that unique thing. But when your market is unique, yet people understand it and it's accessible to a whole lot of people, and people do within that space, and people buy that product, what you now begin to sell is value, because people now ask, why should I buy from this guy? But subconsciously, the people in that trade, because they bring so many things to the table, they begin to add layers of value. And they begin to explain to other people why people need those products. And it doesn't become your problem alone. And which is what we've done in photography. So I remember years ago, I had a project called The Making. And The Making was born out of passion of me wanting to help fashion designers who then fashion photography wasn't popular, in Nigeria. And what we decided was I'll shoot 10 designers. I'll collaborate with, makeup artists. We'll support 10 designers. We'll leverage on the relationship with media agencies, and we'll give them publicity, we'll give them everything. And then, Now, what happened was the moment people started saying that, wow, you could shoot your clothes on a model and it will look so good that people want to buy it off you, they started buying. And they started making requests for photography that will make people want to buy their product off the rack. So before it was put it on hanger, put it on one mannequin, camera phone wasn't even that popular. So people didn't even see why they should. The only place they went to, and internet was, coming into, So the only place you could find was, they were selling these magazines then where, you had all the fashion copy,
pictures,
and then people would just pick, and then, the seamstress and tailors will go. Then suddenly they started realizing as a designer, you can actually take pictures of your stuff, put it up online or somewhere, and people will order and they'll buy, and international people will buy. It changed the industry. Now we have a structured fashion photography industry in Nigeria. Now, what that did is, as more people started demanding, the level of quality needed started rising.
Yes.
All I needed to do was step back a little and improve on my quality of delivery. The moment I started improving on quality of delivery, I could charge higher than the other guy, because I could show you the difference between my work and the other guy's work. So you wanted to come to me. Now, the other guys were the ones explaining why you need to do photography. I was the guy that was developing my skills to be better than every other person. So when you're coming and you want to pay real money, you come to me because I will do better work. I'll give you quality. I'll give you a narrative that will sell your product faster than the other guy. And that becomes easy. So for me, when I was thinking solution, I was thinking industry. And the same thing applies to distribution. So from what it was to what it's continued to be is what we've done. And so what did we start doing now is we started looking at every aspect of it and realized that, listen, there has to be that point of intersection. And the point of intersection of distribution is to begin to look at art differently and say, who truly needs art? Everybody.
Yeah.
But in what form do they need art? So it's to begin to turn art into forms that becomes useful to everybody. Consuming, you understand? So that's where the tech space come in. And I keep going back to the tech space because distribution has gone beyond the traditional way, Distribution is now in various space. So is there any value you can add that will make it easy for people to want to purchase? Is there any new technology you can add? And so for me and for us as a business, as being a photography that we do, and that became the core. So beyond the education, is now looking at how do we partner with other people. So we're building a platform. The whole idea came during COVID. We started building that platform. Unfortunately, maybe the tech people I've been working with have been the problem. So we saw the opportunity in spaces. So we decided to create a platform where people could hire creative spaces and you can list creative, like a marketplace for creative spaces. So we started building that because we know that people will want to create. So how do we make creating accessible? And then suddenly, poof, there was a burst and explosion of people needing creative space to create podcasts, to create content, and all of that. Unfortunately, we didn't take advantage because for me as a business, if it's not running, it's not running. You understand? But it shows that we're thinking far.
Yes.
It shows that we understood where
It
this
was
vision is
going.
going.
Yeah.
And now the next thing is that what's being created. AI is creating still whatever you want to call it. NFT was experimental, but NFT just show that you don't just kick off and want to replace.
Yeah.
You need to grow and understand how the system will absorb and integrate into the system. But NFT wasn't a failure. NFT was just a way to learn how to do something different. So for us is how we thinking, how do we sell African content, African images, African brands, onto a global audience. Where do we need tech? Where do we need people? Where do we need what's available in terms of technology, in terms of security, in terms of protecting the copyright, how does it work? But all of these things too would not happen without 2 or 3 other factors economically. Number one is finance. Who's going to buy, why they're going to buy, how is it going to be priced? We need to think of that. Then legislation. What are the policies that will guide and support? And then education. Who are the people that will buy and why do they want to buy? How do they see value in purchasing those things? And then, art is easy for you to sell. It's simple. The work is good. The material is unique. Kill the artist. It becomes
legacy.
It becomes legacy and legendary because no one can have a copy of that. And you don't have to tell anybody that anymore.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
It's become part of the knowledge. So for us, it's how do we develop all of that medium and processes as well, to integrate into the vision and things. So that's what we've been doing.
There's something you just mentioned that I sort of laughed at, and maybe I would come to that first and then go back to like the last of the things I have in mind. Now, there was a time where, the best photographers, the best artists were considered the best after they pass. You have to. They have to go.
Why would you let that happen? So you don't chop your money.
And then their work just. Just like you said, it becomes one of one. That artist would not create that work again.
Absolutely.
Right? But we've seen a change where the legends are living, the legends are created. There's a lot of expectations even amongst the legends with the work they create. When you talked about like your work in events, right? Your work has preceded your name, where everyone sees the work and they know the work. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, what changed that? Because it's a curious thing. Like up until you said it didn't hit me that way. There was a time where no one really cared until you were no more. But like now we care.
Yeah,
what changed that?
So I think people started realizing. So it's always been that way. It's always been that people were earning when they were alive. It just added more value when they're no more there. But in this part of the world was a bit different. And the simple reason was. People perceived art in a certain way that was unrealistic, and the way they perceived art needed to be in a certain form. It doesn't need to be disruptive. So because of that, people were copying, were not creating. The moment people started creating, it changed a lot of things. So I'll explain the simple, for me, runway photography. There was a way people were shooting runway photography. So there's also a global way that you shoot that everybody knows, you
this is
shoot,
the
you understand, this is standard, you shoot model straight, you do this, you do that. But for me, I wanted something different. And I kept asking myself, what can I do different? And I realized that everybody shoots runway with the available lights and all of that. And I told myself, what if I could work on the quality, the skin tone of models on the runway, such that you pick those images of the runway and people will argue that this was a curated shoot. So that's what I started doing. So I started experimenting with settings within the camera such that when I look at the lighting, understanding light as well. So I get into most projects. I want to speak to the light technicians, you understand, and understand how they're lighting and all of that. And I advise in my little way, how I think they should switch and tweak their light. So I have 3-dimensional lighting. I have, something that separates the subject from the background, this and that. I have consistency in the wavelength of the light that is hitting them. And by the time I'm done and I start shooting, I'm able to model that to have an image that is literally perfect out of the camera. So it helps turnaround time, for my clients. So we're able to put up like international best practice images in near real time. It helps the quality for those who want to go into print, like within the next 24 to 48 hours, the images are ready. You don't even have to do any other thing. Just pick and straight into your publication, and the thing is now people have started imputing or infusing themselves into the work.
Yeah.
So that's why you see Kelechi's work. I see Kelechi's work, I'm like, it's Kelechi that shot that thing. I see Aham Ibalames, I'm like, oh, Aham shot that. I see Tiwa, I'm like, that's Tiwa's style. Now, what has happened is people have started putting themselves into the work and it becomes unique.
Yeah.
So now people are buying
the individuals
and within the work.
Keep buying the individuals.
Absolutely. So I think that's what has actually changed.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now because
you don't have to die before you make money.
Because they always create.
Absolutely.
I see.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
That's a very deep thing you said though. So I'm going to repeat it because it's actually quite insightful. So what you said here is this, right? The reason why many arts were not taken seriously in the get-go, especially in this side of the world, was because we were replicating art.
Absolutely.
So there was no individual.
Absolutely.
But the moment we started
putting individuality into the art,
people cared about
because people want to buy. They want to buy you.
Yeah, they want to buy a person.
And it's so funny. Our identity as artists is almost like our fingerprint. It's unique to everyone. But people don't know. You can't create like Kola Oshalusi. It's not possible because there's only one Kola Oshalusi. There's only one way Kola Oshalusi creates. So it's beyond the post-production process. It is the Kola Oshalusi that goes into it. It's the way I think when I create that goes into it. You might think as an artist, I get into certain spaces. It doesn't mean you can't like another person's work more than Kola Oshalusi's work. It's just that there's a Kola Oshalusi element that goes into every image created by Kola Oshalusi that defines that image. And you can't replicate that. As an artist, you can't. Just find yourself and throw yourself into it, and people identify it, and then they'll flow with it.
Okay, so I have just a few more questions left.
Cool.
All right, because I want to keep this time. And you're in a space where you said something, there are economic factors that impact your industry and every industry, right? How have you thrived through it? Because a lot of things like you said, photography is expensive. Yeah, photography is expensive, even today, all right? If you don't have money, you'll be competing against someone who is using an iPhone and you want to do photography, all right? Because your gear has to be better than the iPhone. At least that's my perception. And if there is someone who is trying to take the spot and they don't have the resources to really thrive, the way the economy is, we talked about earning power, right? What would you say that person should do? How would that person beat the odds? Because you beat the odds. You're beating the odds because the odds are consistent, right? Someone who is trying to start, where did they start?
From the beginning.
Where is the beginning?
Start with what you have.
I've heard that a lot. Yeah. So I think,
unfortunately,
I have to be the one to ask. So when you say start with what I have, so I don't have anything. I have a phone.
No, that's not true. Okay. You have something. You just said you have a phone.
Okay.
That is something.
Even if it's not a good phone, and I need to go into an industry where today people take quality way more important than anything else.
Success is a journey. It's not a destination. People don't get it. The Kola Oshalusi now wasn't the Kola Oshalusi 15 years ago Wasn't even Kola Oshalusi 5 years ago. Wasn't Kola Oshalusi 10 years ago. Wasn't Kola Oshalusi 2 years ago. Success is a journey. You have to go. Okay. I came into the industry knowing nobody. I wanted to do business. I didn't know jack about photography. My background is science. I didn't know nothing. I didn't know no one. But I knew I was going to succeed. I just knew I was going to succeed. I mean, because there was no option, I have to succeed. It was, there are times you have option. It's like people saying, oh, I think I'll relocate out of the country. There are some of us that don't have option. By grace, we're blessed to be able to move around, have kids abroad if we want to, But our option is straightforward. We know they come up for here. Till there's no other person and they need to drop key. We will be the person that will wait to drop the key. We're not living here.
Turn off the lights.
No, turn off the light and leave. We're not living here. So, because I understood that, the only way to go is up. I mean, when you're down, and I think the beautiful thing is when you start with what you have, you're there on the ground. There are two ways to go. You go up or you go underground and you're dead.
Yeah, buried.
Good. Yeah. So if you don't want to be buried, you can only go up. So when I started out, when I was resigning from my 9 to 5, I bought a camera and that's all I had. I didn't even have a flash. I remember my cousin giving me money to buy like a flash. I remember him giving me that money, saying, Uncle, a lot of flash, go and buy a flash. It will make your work better. So, and then I bought a flash, I bought another used lens, so I can have 2 lenses. I bought like a zoom lens and all of that. And that's all I had. And it was an entry-level camera. It was, the first digital camera I bought then was like, was it a 350D? Yeah, go check the date. It was manufactured. It was like 18 years ago, 17 years ago. Yeah, so that was like the first digital camera that I bought with my money, apart from others that I had learned written all of that. And how do you compete with those who were having the 1X and the 1DX that were like the real people in the industry? You can't. But what people fail to understand is gears are important. But the person behind the gear is very important. The mindset of that person is important. How the person wishes to create is very important. So the gear is important, but the person behind the gear is so important. Until the person has the mindset of starting with what they have. I remember after I'd worked, the first set of lights, because I'm like, oh, more, I want to go into fashion, shoot magazine cover. So when I had made money, I saved 30,000 naira then. And I found this guy who told me, Omo, I will buy you lights. All you need is lights. Canon needs light, blah, 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 blah. I gave him 30. Maybe I'll see him tomorrow. He left with that money. I nearly died. Do you know what he meant to save? Me that was earning maybe like 2K/5K. Do you know what he meant? How many jobs I've done to make 30K and save 30K? And then one guy picks up this money and then it goes into thin air. I don't know where he is now. If he ever watches this, the Lord will be with him. He'll be fine. I'm happy he stole that money because he drove me into working more. And I started deciding to buy stuff on eBay years ago, and everybody that could buy whatever they could buy for me from anywhere in the world I was traveling, and I would buy from them. So the reality is I didn't start using full frame cameras till almost the 10th year of my career. I was using entry-level cameras. And the beauty of me using entry-level camera was because I was able to master it. By the time I moved into full frame, it was like luxury. So it's like someone who was driving a tricycle. And you suddenly give him a Toyota Land Cruiser. You're like, what? So this is how life could be,
Yeah, the experience is different.
Absolutely. But you see, the beautiful thing
It's the
is
process.
I had gone through that process.
The process.
So when I bought my first full frame camera, I mean, I got into that point that I'll always buy 2 cameras.
Yeah.
I'll always buy 2 of every camera
That you
I was buying. So I was buying entry-level cameras. And someone said, listen, Olga, you've been doing this. You're good. Try full frame. I'm like, no, it's a try full frame. I said, okay. So I saved up and I finally bought a full frame camera. And don't forget, when you buy full frame cameras, all your entry-level lenses becomes obsolete, which means you have to start buying lenses. So it was expensive. It was an expensive transition. But trust me, when I finally started buying, there was no going back.
You went through the process.
Absolutely. So people get it wrong. There's just so much. See, the world, I don't think there's an easier time to make money like now.
I have a curious thought to that.
No, see, argue it as you may. It's easier now to make money with the world is your audience as a photographer. That means you have about 7 to 8 billion people able to see your work. I don't think there's a time better than now. Not when we were downloading PDF. There was no YouTube. There was no Facebook. There was no Instagram. There was nothing. You know, MySpace, yes, and all of those. You know, and all you could do was email.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like there was a social network.
Yeah.
You know, to download stuff. It's easier to make money now. You just need to go through the process. Don't be distracted by what you think other people are doing, how you think other people are succeeding. You will be fine. Where you are now is where God wants you to be now. See it as part of your journey. Listen, your mind needs to, till your mind's open up to understand. You don't understand that where you are is a place you need to be. I share this with my team funny. If I shut down the business today, I'll be fine in less than 1 year. If I shut down the whole business today. Sometimes with my colleagues, I'm like, listen, guys, I can shut down the whole business. And I'll leave this whole territory. And give me 1 year, 365 days max. I'll be almost here that I left you guys. I'll be almost here. And I can beat my chest. You know why? I've gone through the process. I understand it. I am not scared of it. Do I get scared of failing now? No. I think failing is normal now.
Experienced it.
I mean, if I don't fail sometimes, I'm worried. No, it's true.
Yes.
Rejection now is normal. So people say, oh, we're booking you. And they're suddenly like, oh, we're sorry, we can't work with you now. I'm like, yo, that's good. You're fine. Sorry, we don't just feel. My dear, we'll see the next job now. You will have another job for me in future. It's now you don't have job for me. Next job, please call me, please. And when you want to back down on that job, tell me ahead so that I don't sue you. So you are fine. So I don't feel it. There was a time for every job I was turned down or clients I missed. It's normal now because now I understand that it's part of life. It's a process. So I'm not scared. So when you go through that process, you're confident. You understand? You can't tell a Dangote now that, he's going to lose all his money and he's scared. He's not scared. The only thing that will scare him now is build something that he would want to see. So for him, the drive now is seeing what he's building succeed. It's not the money. Yeah. You understand? So for me, I've gone to that point that it's beyond the money.
It's not the build.
It's now the build. It's now what I'm creating. So I'm not scared about failing. Because if I start reading out ideas I've worked on, the ones I've shared with people, the ones I've sold to people, the ones that they've messed me up, the ones they've gone behind me to do, it's just too much.
Yeah.
But you know what I realized? Ideas come fresh. Ideas come every day. Whether God is what you believe, whether nature, whether this cosmic, whatever cosmos is what you believe in, it definitely sends ideas to people. It sends place in people's mind every single day. It's who jumps on it and works on it and acts on it that I favor, but it doesn't stop. There's always a problem that you need to find a solution to. So I don't think that's a problem.
Do you think it's easier so we talk about two more questions, and yeah, but this one is quite important to me. Do you really think when you talk process, you mentioned 18 years ago, right? And I'm thinking, who were the peak 18 years ago? Who was shaking the industry 18 years ago? Who was a threat to your work? So it feels like you had time to simmer, right? Let's even look at technology, right? Technology in the last decade has changed drastically. Like, so 2 decades ago, there was a slow build into it. And then in the last decade, it's been massive.
You think there was a slow build?
There was a slow build because I'm looking at, so look at 2000 to 2010, right? So as at 2000, yeah, you still had the internet being new and introductory, right? You had Netflix trying to flip from mail delivery to, in 2007, I think it was 2007, they became a streaming platform, right? It was new. They were taking advantage of the fact that that solution was thriving in the US, but it wasn't everywhere else. So they were still building, right? In 2005, Facebook, I believe, Amazon went fully digital, I think in 1999 into 2000. So you could see that there was that slow build for these companies, right? And then came 2010 to 2020, right? And it seemed like there was a surge, right? Because between 2010 and 2020, we saw social media change the dynamic of how people work. We saw social media change the dynamic of what connectivity looked like, right? But social media existed in 2005. It's just the change in availability of technology in that decade spawned a lot of what we see today, right? So you were picking up at a time where it seemed like there was, I don't want to say enough time, but you could build with the threats being just economic threats, right? Today, I'm trying to build, and there are 50 million people that can do the exact same thing at capacity, right? So like someone is trying to come into photography, right? And there's Kola, there's Kelechi, there is Camera Wars, there's Nire Magic there, and there are like a million great people. And I'm supposed to start with nothing. Somebody is going to look at my work and look at your work and just go, I'm just going to go with Mr. Kola.
You're just trying to jump the gun. So trust me, 20 years ago, there was a threat of what was available at that time. 20 years ago was a transition from film to digital. There were pundits who said this is bullshit. There were those who said this is the future. The digital cameras were not doing this great. Trust me, they were shit compared to the analog cameras.
To the analog camera, yeah.
So, was it a threat? To some people, yes. To adopters, it was an opportunity. Were there people who were, you think I had the time? Were there people who were, mine was worse. I didn't even have anyone. Oh, there were great photographers then. There were great people who were doing great work, who were charging hundreds of thousands to shoot your wedding. The society people had the people they were working with that were shooting their weddings, flying them to other places to shoot their wedding. They were using analog big Mamiya cameras and all of that. They were shooting those. Of course, there were threats. But the reality is this. You think social media is the big problem now? So let me advise for those listening to this. I'm not big in AI. But this is one thing I'm coming to learn from people like you, so definitely I'll come sit down. But please, I don't know how you're going to do it. Go and explain yourself to AI. Introduce yourself directly, not when you aggregate information. Go and introduce yourself to AI. My name is Kola Oshalusi. I am a leading event photographer in Lagos, Nigeria. This is what I have to offer that keeps me above every other person. I am ranked first 5 among event photographers. Go and do it now before somebody else does it. Because in the next few years, 3-4 years, social media will be nothing.
And that will be the source of truth.
AI becomes source of truth. So there's always a threat at every point in time. Would it get you worried? Oh, sure, it will get you worried. Do you think You don't have an opportunity within that space, or you can think as much as you think. That's your thought. It's not the reality. You understand? It is what your mind is thinking at that point, because the mind is seeing the threat, but the mind is failing to see the opportunity. The moment you narrow your mind to see the opportunity, see, there were great photographers. My break was I was doing red carpet photography. People were doing other kind of photography. Red carpet photography gave me the niche. And that was the area that nobody was looking at. There's loop and there's vacuum within the space. Camera Joint found a huge vacuum. He's one of the richest person in the business of photography in Nigeria right now. He's one of the richest. Forget any photographer's name you know. Within the value chain, Camera Joint is one of the richest person, you know. What does he do? He sells gears. Who do you think the foreign brands trust the most? Camera Joint, not the photographer. He found a niche. He's a businessman trading in photography. That's what he's doing. And he's selling cameras and gears. Do you know how many brands want to come into Nigeria that they just want to go through Camera Joint to come into Nigeria? He's sitting down in his house every day, he's making money. I'm the photographer, I'm running around and trying to make money. You know, and if I'm not shooting, I'm hungry. That's it. You understand what I'm saying? There are other businesses like that. Emmanuel makes fantastic money building backdrops, to the point that people think canvas backdrops are supposed to be called Zen backdrops. He's built a name around it. He's built a brand around it. Yeah. Everybody that now does canvas backdrop, and they call it, come and buy your Zen backdrop, not come and buy your canvas backdrop. It's literally almost built a name around it and changed the name of the product. Yeah. You know, the same way we call Omo detergent and all of that. Yeah. That's what it's, you know, building. So there would always be opportunities. It's who finds the niche and who is willing to follow through the niche. You're coming into photography. I think the biggest problem is people see the photography industry from the lens of the photographer alone. It's a huge industry with so much within the value chain that people are not taking advantage of. I say it to people. I mean, I'm switching retouchers more recently, but I had a retoucher I was using then who's moved out of Nigeria. And averagely every month I pay him about 250,000 naira for retouching. He's a freelance guy. I am one of his customers. Yes. So if he had 10 customers, it was doing 2.5 million from retouching people's images. Images he never shot. You don't know his face. He doesn't care about you knowing his face. But while you're running around to make money, the guy is making 2.5 million, and he has time to spend with his kids, with his wife, and go for dinner, and then come back from dinner to work, and then sleep, and then wake up, and then buy all the software, and then jump in his Benz. Because he was using a Benz that was like 4 or 5 times more than the price of the car I was using. And I was paying him 250K a month, minimum. Now, I've talked about camera joints. I've talked about the person making backdrop. There are people building a lot of other things. Who's building accounting and studio management software unique to the photography industry? Who's building it? That's a huge vacuum that has not been filled yet. Who's doing the back-end service for equipment that photographers are using that is solely focused on equipment servicing? Who is doing it? Who is training and building and working with, government and policy and all that to build a school of the arts majoring in photography and videography in Nigeria? Who is doing it? Who is writing books? Apart from everybody creating loads and action buttons and all that, who is building a backbone of resource materials purely for photographers, not earning from YouTube? Go and check the number of Nigerian photographers on YouTube and how many people. Who is building a platform where all of these people can come and aggregate their lectures and people can buy these courses of them and keep the money here and have developers continue to build systems that can be integrated to the whole of West Africa and Africa? Who's building it? So there's so much within the value chain that people are not. So when people talk about, want to come to the industry, the question is, you want to come into the industry or you want to come and be a photographer? They're two different things. If you want to come into the industry, there's so many spaces that have not been filled. You want to come and be a photographer, there's so much opportunity. There are guys who shoot. Suddenly you start hearing of iPhonography.
Yeah, I've heard of iPhonography.
iPhonography, phonography, and all of that. You understand? These are people who just pick up, these materials and then they start shooting and that's it. So I don't think it's a threat. I think there are opportunities, and I think There's nothing like, oh, there was a time that, technology wasn't accelerating. Technology has always accelerated. You can really talk about the time and what you think, the degree of acceleration was. And that's why we think our kids are so intelligent because they pick up the phone and then they can understand YouTube. And we say, oh, when we were young, we didn't know phone. Of course, there was no phone when you were young. Just box phone that you roll like this. And then we found a way to tap the phone and then we do tap, 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 and then we pick it up and then he has the tone and then we dial. When our parents think they've locked the phone. You understand?
Yeah.
And our parents, I'm like, gosh, these kids are so intelligent. No, they're not intelligent. It was just what was available, that we're able to spend more time with and explore and, break. So I don't think it's
the challenges are still secular.
It will always come as time evolves. And then when you're within that time, it's for you to find solution to the challenges and then you're good.
I think that's a good way to end this. Yeah. I like the fact that you helped dive the conversation into the value chain system, and it feels perfect for me. All right, it feels perfect for me. So here's something I do at the end of every episode. I always ask for the question you wished we got to talk about, the conversation you wish we got to talk about. So if you had that question you wish we talked about, what would that question have been? What would you want to say about it?
What question would that have been? I think maybe the question would have been, because you're a tech guy and, everybody knows you're a tech guy, is how best or what's best way can the tech space come into the photography industry and drive value? I think that's one question I'm waiting for someone to not just ask, but to provide answers to. Listen, the photography industry in Nigeria currently is valued at about 3 trillion. I can do the maths for you. It's about 3 trillion. Yes, 3 trillion naira. You can convert it to dollar, depends on which exchange rate and which window. So, photographers, sadly, end up with less than 1/30th or 1/50th of that money. The industry has the potential to gross about minimum of 10 trillion if properly expanded and integrated into the system. One of the easiest ways for the industry to accelerate is to adopt technology into that space, where you can see direction of trade, data, opportunities merge into somewhere. You can access this data and turn it into products and turn it into marketing values. That's what the industry needs. You understand? And I'm yet to find people who will look from that perspective and peel off what they think photography or videography is. It's not the image.
Yeah.
It's not the image, The music industry will scream in Nigeria, oh, wow, they're doing great. Oh, wow. The movie industry, wow, they're doing great. Do you know what? YouTube is not owned by Africa.
Yeah.
Netflix is not owned by Africa. Amazon is not Africa. Disney is not Africa.
They control the resource and distribution.
Remember that I said it. For a capitalist to give you 1,000, he's making 100,000.
Yeah.
So for every person that is earning on Twitter, or X, and he thinks they're earning money,
X is earning a lot more.
X is earning times 100 of that money. When do we build? Africa owns the next story for the future. Africa and part of Asia are the only 2 continents that their stories are yet to be told. Who's going to take control of those contents? I don't want to talk about this. But do you know why the whole world, is biased about the war going on in the Middle East? Mm-hmm. It's a narrative. Till Africa tells its own story on platforms created by Africans. To protect those stories and the integrity of those stories.
Will be very.
We can't make money. These few companies I've mentioned are more valuable than all the countries in Africa put together in terms of financial value. But are they actually more valuable?
No.
Africa has more money than the whole global economy. But who's telling the story? Who is the custodian
Of our story, of our products.
of our products? As long as you're not the custodian of your product,
You can really monetize it.
I can decide who and I can decide how. The stories are monetized and the money is made. That is it.
I think that's a perfect ending to this. I think, being that you've posed the question, from a tech perspective, it's really why these conversations are happening, right? It's because, to be very honest, at its bare, the goal of many of the conversations I'm having is to create the synergy that all of the industries, as isolated as they seem, are still part of the retail chain, right? And it's until we see that this is a chain and we are all sort of locked together, we will not work together. Absolutely. And if you try to work in isolation as a chain, then the chain does not exist. Absolutely. It's broken, right? It's not a chain. So until there's like a synergy between them, there's really no real result. And I feel like you really hit the nail right there, because until we control every part of the chain, we'll have other continents thriving in the retail chain because they control the peak of it. Absolutely. There's something I avoided bringing up today because we talk about it a lot. The cameras that we use right now, the filming camera is not made by Nigerians.
It's the same thing. The device that controls the narrative. So let me give you the shocker. Do you know that till more recently, everything you use for photography and for film was not built for the African skin?
Yeah, I heard of that.
The lighting as well.
Yeah.
So that is why when you're shooting, they'll tell you when you're shooting a black skin, push your light up by 2 stops. Because it wasn't made for the skin. So your skin absorbs more light because it's dark.
Yeah.
So the metrics of computing, the value, the ISO value of calculation is not for your skin. Yours wasn't factored in.
Yeah, it wasn't factored.
So when cameras are created, you understand, they weren't factored.
That's a whole business idea.
So you need to understand that policies has to come in play. Everything has to come in play. Manufacturing has to come in play. But you cannot bring the guy to come and manufacture when you don't have data. The guy will roll and thrive on data.
Yeah.
If data tells him this is a good market, but there's no data, who's collecting the data? Who's managing the data on the back end? So it's a lot. See, we begin to take on, like you said, the whole retail chain and the whole value chain.
Yeah.
We don't control it, and we cannot make that money off it.
So I think I'll just end it here by saying, yes, this is what our next step is. We have to control the chain.
Absolutely.
Right? Photography is not exempted from that chain.
Absolutely.
And photography has, I like how you talked about looking beyond the taking pictures, that there are different aspects of it. I don't think even I myself have considered the different aspect of that chain, but in itself, there's a whole system there. And we can thrive if we play in all the systems. So thank you very much for this conversation. Thank you for all the insight. This was really brilliant. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity to share knowledge here and learn as well.